Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. Hey, it's episode 275, believe it or not. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. We do this Sunday night live on the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. You can think of it as a little Sox therapy, whether you're with us live or catching the audio anywhere you find your podcasts throughout the week. Plenty to get to here as our Sox ended a streak. All kinds of Maldonado love. Some Hawk stuff, a tribute to Hawk possibly. Mark Burley made his way back, and to talk a little crosstown series and everything that went down there. All that and more. Jump on in if you're live and joining us. We'd love to hear from you. With me, as always, my best friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Buddy, it's good to talk to you, and I cannot wait to hear the stories from Hawaiian Shirt Night. You're wearing it right now. It looks good on you. Yeah. You wear a Hawaiian shirt better than anybody I've ever seen in my life, better than a mannequin. Like if you put that shirt on a mannequin, it wouldn't look as good as it is on you, and I'm glad to see you in it and rocking it. Did you wash it between when you got it yesterday and today?
No, you
did it need a washing?
No, it didn't. It didn't need a washing because there was a bit of a drizzle. There was like a little bit of a rain. So
you're good.
I was kind of in a gentle cycle on my own.
And you drove with the windows down home, right. So you just aired it out, and you're good. Okay.
I had a couple Pina Colada air fresheners that I just use on my Hawaiian shirts, just so they get like the kind of the tropical scent to them as well.
Yeah.
So that's all I had to do, but. Yeah, we'll get to that. I was there in person, fairly well attended Saturday afternoon.
Of course it would be. You know what? Yeah. I was telling somebody the other day there's not a White Sox fan. I said, again, this team does a couple things really well. They do the food well. Obviously, they've got the milkshakes down, so we can go past that.
Of course.
And they do giveaways well, right? Because people will show up for a good giveaway night. They're going to show up for the food. They're going to show up for the milkshake. They're going to do everything other than the team. They're going to show up for. So
yeah,
we do a lot of things really good. Groundskeeper, fantastic. Oh, yeah. PA announcer, awesome. Used to have a really good, organist. That's another story for another day.
Oh yeah,
a lot of things that this organization has done really well, except for putting a good team on the field. So anyway, I digress.
No,
it looks great. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. It really means a lot. You've said it to me before in Hawaii. You've said it to me when we were there for your brother's wedding many years ago.
Hawaiian people were coming up to you and said, "Wow, you really wear a Hawaiian shirt well."
Can I take a picture with you, sir? I feel that's great. I love it. I mean, last year's Hawaiian shirt, it was very tropical. It was very vibrant. That was my favorite. But I believe I've gone to every Hawaiian shirt game.
No.
I've got the whole closet full of them. So, it was an interesting game. Fun. I'll get to all that about really finding the joy. I mean, there was another day where you just kind of find the joy in this just garbage of a season. But I want to welcome in Peyton, Trey, Sydney. Thank you so much for being with us here on this Sunday night. Our Chicago White Sox 17-49 as we record here on June 9th. Only team in all of baseball still waiting on their 20th win. 26 games back in that ever-forgiving AL Central division with a run differential of minus 144. That's almost impossible. You really have to try at it, and the Sox have been clearly the worst team in all of baseball. I mean, this is historical stuff. I mean, we had some history this past week. Sox are on pace for some historical stuff, especially with the run diff. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Before I go any further and we start talking a little Boston Red Sox, White Sox series, especially this Sunday finale, I wanted to thank Todd Welter, who's running Locked On White Sox these days, and he's doing it, man. And I give him a ton of credit. He's gotten a hold of it and he's making it his own. He had me on as a guest this past week. It was wonderful to come back home for a short period of time and chop things up with him. And Joey Christopoulos, a friend of the podcast, friend of you and I, he was asking about you We talked a little sports on his Sports Talk Shy program, and he is an outstanding follow at Joey Sports Guy on Twitter X. Wonderful Bears follow. You're going to want to be following this guy when it's Chicago Bears, but he does it all sports, and also does a lot of stuff for Beyond the Big Ten. So shout out to those two guys. Thank you so much for just, reaching out, and it was wonderful to talk White Sox. But you watched this finale, Pat. You were watching this Sunday game. It was a beautiful day, so chance to win 3 out of 4 from Boston, which are, 500 team, but still it's the Sox here at 17-49. What early thoughts before I get into everything? Is the Sox lost in extras, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. What general feel from the game?
Well, the general feel is, nothing has changed much in terms of this team in extra innings, right? This team continues to struggle in the extra innings at home. This should be an advantage for you when you're with the new rules and where they're at. And you should not lose extra inning games at home as much as this team does. And I don't know what the stats are, but it's just awful. So, when this team,
stats are bad. Let's just say that the stats
it's really bad. It's really bad. And it goes down to this baseball IQ, right? When you're not able to hold runners on, they're stealing third base, unassisted, and there's no throw down because there's no chance of getting a guy. It's like, listen, guys, this is where Pedro has got to take a little fault here again, where you're looking at situations where guys are stealing bases without a throwdown when everybody steals on this team anyway. Those are things that drive me nuts. And again, there are 2 runs scored in that inning, and you don't score any runs in the bottom half, and the game's over. So that's a little bit maddening, right? When you're looking at a microcosm of, how the game is going here. And then you're looking at, there was an inning where the Red Sox, I think, committed 3 errors in the same inning, and you're not able to capitalize more than you did. So, and it was bullpen day for the Red Sox today. This was a full bullpen day for the Boston Red Sox, and you were not able to score more than 4 runs. So it's a little bit maddening, and I shouldn't just like zero in on it and go, I just hammer on all these points. I get that, because this season is what the season is. I actually was just excited to sit out and actually watch a game. That's what I did today. I had no commitments to a travel game today, coaching any games today. So I just was like, I was excited, Nick, to sit down and watch the Sox play a baseball game, regardless of the fact that they've won 17 games or not, regardless of the fact that they had lost 14 games in a row, regardless of the fact of where they're at in the standings and the worst team of, maybe of all time. I was really excited to just sit down and watch the game today. So the old adage of, it's better at the ballpark, for me today, it was better in Shanahan, watching on my patio, watching the game with my son, having a couple cold ones, and enjoying the wonderful weather that was today. Yep. So, listen, this team is what the team is, but it's a little bit maddening when you just kind of go, why? How can this be? But then you have to remove yourself a little bit and go, it's baseball. It's warm outside. Let's just enjoy it, because why am I going to stress about this right now?
That's a healthy approach. If we're using this as Sox therapy, I think that's a breakthrough. I think you've kind of been able to get through it. I was pretty aggravated this past week. I texted with you a little bit for the crosstown games, and this Sunday game. You're talking about little things, but those little things are why they're as bad as they are. Obviously roster construction and how things are managed and coached and what things are cared about and taught or worked on, people held accountable, not being held accountable, all that stuff snowballs. Okay. When it's not even paid attention to and nobody cares about it and the correct personnel aren't around. And that's what you get, at the end of the day is 17-49. And you saw that here on Sunday. And, Banks is in the game late, and, it's not just Banks. This happens all of the time with White Sox pitching. They cannot hold runners on. They don't even try, not even a look back. And Stone talks about it all the time. And I love how dry and just biting his comments are of like, what is wrong with these? It doesn't cost anything to take a look back. Like, just give a look, a token look. Nobody does it. Boston set themselves up in position to score because they swiped third. You got Duke Ellis in left field, and the gentleman is fast. And I know that he's, still got a lot of growing edges, but man, his throw home, I'm sorry, but you could have picked a fan out of left field and just say, hey, I think you could throw it probably more accurately and probably with more pop. But he's not here for that. He's a fast guy. We could talk a little bit more about him because his Cubs.
But let me ask you this question, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak as a very ignorant person right now, as somebody that never has played anything at any level. Okay, I've never shied away from that. I've never played any inning at any level of any kind in my entire life. Okay.
Sure.
But I would have to believe that if you're a Major League Baseball player, you can make a better throw than that. But then I look at like people that played in the NBA, like Shaquille O'Neal, they couldn't even shoot a free throw. That to me is embarrassing. I can shoot a free throw better than Shaq, but he's a Hall of Fame basketball player. How can you make it to this level and not be able to throw? I mean, that to me is baffling.
I mean, he could throw. It's just obviously not one of his strong points, nor is hitting. And I don't think it really will be.
Well, let me tell you, let me just take your resume down here, sir. Mr. Ellis, you don't throw particularly well. That's okay. We can work around that. And you also, it says here that not a strong hitter. Can you expound on that, sir? You're not very good at it. Okay, very good. And why don't you just be a Major League baseball player then? You can't throw or hit, so welcome to the major leagues.
Well, I think there's guys like that in baseball. That's the crazy thing, that they've got this specialty. They're an X factor. Maybe like Billy Hamilton was in a way of, though I thought Billy Hamilton threw some leather. Again, it's early for Ellis. I know he went from AA to the majors and everything, and he's probably a little starstruck, got some jitters perhaps, but I haven't been in the small samples. It's like, dude, you're fast. You're absolutely fast. You've got to just calm yourself on the base paths. You got picked off, of course, on the north side. You're crazy fast, and that's the weapon. But I haven't seen much else so far. So anyway, that was happening late in the game, and then you had Soroka on the mound, and Soroka is, he's been relegated to different roles, which is not a surprise. But the guy had two errors on his own late in the game. Couldn't catch a ball that was flipped to him by Vaughn, and then couldn't field the ball. Now, that practice right there is called PFP, okay? In high school, in college, I did these as a pitcher, and anybody else listening that played pitching at any level beyond, freshman year in high school, and maybe nowadays with all these traveling advanced little leagues, they're probably working on this stuff early. You do this every day in practice, and you even work on it before game when everybody's doing infield. Pitcher, fielding, practice, okay? And you work on rollers to first base, where you're going to run towards the line, then you run up the line with a target. If the ball is away and you're not going to get a flip and you have to field, how are you going to find the bag with your feet? And then you make your extension in your stride. I mean, and you're fielding your position. You'll get some fungos hit back to you. You're working on just knocking the ball down, not getting past you. Like, that stuff has got to be worked on. I mean, I'm assuming they still work on it. I don't know, or maybe he's just not paying attention. I can't be sure of anything with this team. But that was embarrassing. His display late in the game, and as Sydney brought it up in the chat, Pedro went on record this past week talking about his love for managing in one-run games. In tight games, he loves it. And when Ozzie caught wind of it, and I think it was the pregame on NBC Sports Chicago, his reaction to Pedro's comments was like, are you crazy? Are you insane? I haven't met any manager that loves one-run games. They take years off of your life. And by the way, Pedro isn't good in any games, let alone one-run games. He's horrible in one-run games. I mean, he mismanages the hell out of a game, and he did so on Sunday in several different moments. We're going to get to the Maldonado stuff, but you see what I'm saying here.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, when people say, why do you keep talking about Pedro? What's going to change? It's this stuff. Like if you're going to say that, we're going to hold you accountable to it. But there is no accountability, clearly, in this organization. And he'll stick around. And, if he hasn't been fired now, we could talk in a little bit of odds on, when or if. But look, they're in no hurry to fire this guy, clearly.
No, I mean, Bad News Bob already came out and said, there's no, movement within the organization to get rid of Pedro. It is what it is. They're going to get through the season. They're going to reassess and see if they can, if he can be the guy to catapult all these young players into the future. But I just can't imagine. I can't imagine that they would look at it in a microcosm. Just look at today's game and go, wow, this is the guy that we want to manage our team going forward. Because just a small moment in time, and you go, there's an opportunity for you to pinch hit for Maldonado, a guy that's hitting. Is he hitting under 100? Is he still under 100?
Well under 100.
Well under 100. And there's a movement by the fans to vote him in as a starting catcher for the All-Star game, just for spite.
As a laugh, as a goof.
You want to return this item? Yeah, for spite. You can't return this item for spite. That's an old Seinfeld episode, Nick. That's for you. We hit our quota for the night.
Yeah, that's the
fans want to vote this guy in for spite. and you want this guy up in a moment because whatever reason, and I got
the full quote here, man. I'm ready to pull the trigger.
Let me. You can say, because I purposely didn't listen to it.
Yeah,
because I knew you would have it for tonight.
Well, you set it up
in the game when you have a guy that's hitting well under 100 with runners on to drive runs in because you need those runs, and you allow this guy to continue to have at bats. That right there is fireable offense.
It is. It absolutely
amongst
is.
other things, the long resume of not having the team, and you're not able to manage, and bring people together, and you've lost this team for an entire year plus. That alone should say this guy should be fired.
Defense, and defense is a key word, I guess, because Grifol uses it a lot in his defense of Maldonado. It's ridiculous. It's laughable. It's a laugh, like this whole All-Star game thing is. This social media movement on Twitter X, and I think it might be on Reddit and other places of, use your time wisely and vote Maldonado into the All-Star game. Okay, it's fun. It's ironic and all that kind of stuff. And, it's starting to get a little bit of a swell. So much that John Schriffen brings it up on the telecast, I believe on Saturday. And I don't know if he knows it's a goof or not. It sounded like he was really thinking that this was just Sox fans just trying to support another White Sox player.
Oh,
and
boy.
he went and he went on and he talked about this. And Stone's response, which was absolute silence, was just chef's kiss. It was wonderful. What was going through Stone's mind, I can only imagine. He just kept it silent, and it was perfect. Just kind of let that whole thing hang out to dry. But yeah, I don't know if if Schriffen gets it, or because if you get that it's a joke, why
First of all, Schriffen, I mean, it seems like a good guy. Good guy to have around. Fantastic guy, maybe if you have a daughter, to marry this guy. He's going to be positive Patty. Sure. He's going to be fantastic. He's going to be a great person to be around and have fun at Thanksgiving. But he's got no clue. He's got no clue about anything. He's the craziest person as ever. He is the person you hang around with, and it's like you're at a bonfire, Nick. We're all having a couple brews, having a good time, talking about sports. And here comes Giacomo over here that doesn't know anything about anything. He just moved in town from California. And he comes in talking about, trying to fit in with the crowd. And he's like, this guy, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
What you say about John Schriffen?
Hello, Phil and Trey. Welcome to the therapy. We're talking the Maldonado push, Schriffen's response. The Maldonado push is really happening. It's something. I don't recall when you have the opportunity to vote until, but people are really they're into it. They're really trying to get Maldonado the votes, but Maldonado is god awful. His numbers offensively, especially, are brutal, and he's not an upgrade defensively. He's absolutely not. He's a veteran, and Pedro Grifol defends those veterans. So, Sunday in the finale, I mean, you had 2 outs, bases loaded, ball game at 3-3, and I mean, no pinch hit of Maldonado.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's hitting 71. I mean, it's inexcusable. So this Grifol was asked about, these other things, just like where were the opportunities to pinch hit Maldonado? Why is he starting, I believe, back-to-back days? Like, why are you doing this? Which if Grifol would have said, well, I have seen that Sox Twitter is behind this guy, and they are getting votes in at a record pace to get him into the All-Star game. So if he would have said that, I think that would have just been perfect. It would have been the icing. It was just like, you are all just a bunch of nuts. Of course you think that. So he didn't go that route, but this is where he went. And this is like a Billy Madison, kind of like the proctor of the whole contest, like because your brain's going to explode after this quote. So this is Grifol. I believe in what he does defensively. Again, we're talking about offensive situations, but I believe in what he does defensively. We're in a tight ball game right there. I believe in his defensive value. He's not swinging the ball, obviously, offensively, but I believe in what he does defensively and what he brings to the table for us and how he navigates pitchers through a few games that are tough. It's unquantifiable. That's the problem. You can't quantify it. But I've been around the game long enough that I know that what he does behind the plate, I know how he prepares, and I know what he brings to the table. I'm not going to sit here and harp every single time on every time Maldonado hits. Why don't I pitch for him in the first inning or in the second inning? Or if his at-bat comes in, if the game is on the line late in the game, or even if I feel like this is the time to do it, I'm going to do it. I've done it before, and I continue to do it. But I'm not going to just go through this every single day, whatever the at-bat is, whether it is the second inning, fourth inning. I believe in what he does defensively. End quote. So
when you said that my head would explode, you were almost right.
Yeah.
I had to keep my hat on because otherwise it would have exploded when you said all of that stuff. So can you tell me in that moment what his defensive, whatever he bringing people, pitchers through innings and navigating all the crap that he just spewed, what does that have to do with driving in a run?
Nothing. It has
nothing
to do with
in that moment.
In that moment, it has nothing. Pedro had no answer. He had no idea. He was almost like you got caught. Like, oh yeah, I probably should have. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to like hype up his defense and how he does these things that you can't really measure, but I kind of know he's doing it. And that's why we need him in the game. And he starts talking about previous games and stuff. That has nothing to do with it. It's right now in that situation. At that time, when we needed a
valuable
run.
of a defensive catcher where you say, I can't take this guy out of a game. That is bullshit. You cannot tell me after watching him that he is the second coming of Johnny Bench or Carlton Fisk. You go, listen, this guy is unremovable. We cannot remove this guy from the game because of what he might bring in the 8th and 9th inning behind the plate. Because he's that valuable.
Pat, on Saturday, Boston ran all over him. I think Sean Anderson of CHGO put this one out. Maldonado has thrown 1 of 28 runners out attempting to steal. Okay. There are so many issues with Maldonado. I mean, there's a track record with him. And this is, this is organizational. This is why was he even brought in? There's a lot going on here, but for Pedro to kind of skate around that and also not recognize that, like, Maldonado with bases loaded, I think twice, or a runner on second. He had ducks on the pond and he had these opportunities. And in a tight game, which you love one-run games, Pedro. You love those one-run games. You clearly missed it, man. And by going back and defending him because of his defense in previous games and how he prepares pitchers maybe back in April, I'm sorry, you lost me once again.
But is there, and somebody could probably correct me, but is there a responsibility on the bench coach or another coach to walk up to Pedro and help him? Like at some point, there's a lot going on in a game, right? For a manager of a
maybe team. Pat, but I've heard from there's been other regimes where they did not want to hear from any of their coaches. They did not listen to
That's
other
ridiculous.
Coaches. It was, I don't even, this is my game, and so I'm not saying that happens here, but I think you're onto something. I think it would be nice if he got some help in a lot of different ways. But
I mean, listen. Again, I'm going to put it out there that I'm an assistant coach on an 8U part-time travel team. And I will go up to the head coach or the manager of our team and say, maybe you want to do this. Maybe you want to think about this. Maybe this is something you want to, think about in this situation, because they got a lot of stuff going on in an 8U game, right? Yeah. And then you think about, okay, I got to pull this kid here, and he's got so many pitches, and I got to get this kid warmed up, and I got to do this, and boom, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And I might go up there and I might say, hey, Brad, here's something that you might want to think about here. Maybe we want to do this and this and this and move some things around and do that. Okay, boom, thank you very much. I appreciate it, because there's a lot going on in a baseball game. You might not think it. And in a major league game, I can't imagine what's going on and all the stuff that's going on, the moving parts. You should be taking things in from at least one person that you trust to come up to you and go, I don't know if you know this or not, but he's batting 71. Yeah. And, we've got.
I know you love one-run games, and I know you're the one-run game master, but I thought maybe I would just take it or leave it. I'm just going to put it out there.
I mean, Nick, you and I have been friends for 25 years. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
For a long time, over 20 years. If I walked up to you and say, Nick, here's what I would do on this putt. I know you. I've seen you putt before.
Sure.
You may want to push it out to the right, because I know you. I've seen your putts before, and you tend to pull everything you do to the left. And I would put it out this way. And you'd say, thank you. I didn't think about that. That's how Pedro should go. Like, listen, I know that's why I hired you to be on my staff, to help me. Someone, please, for the love of everything holy in this world, please help me. I would imagine he'd want that. Don't you think?
You would think, he just seems like he's like an egomaniac. Like, how dare you question? And for him to kind of have that vibe with his track record and what he has not been able to accomplish and even really get started, and how things have been just tumbling down since he came to the South Side, you'd think, he would try to start taking. Maybe he has, and we just don't know it, but. The quote was absolutely awful. I mean, he pinch hit for Jolks late in the game. I think the 6th inning as well, which was a real head scratcher. That I had no idea why that was. It was a poorly managed game. It was a poorly managed game by Pedro Grifol, and a long line of issues for sure this season. And you could say what you want about, get rid of him and nothing would really change if you move Montoya in. And that might be the case, but you won't have somebody that clearly is over their head dealing with maybe some of the younger kids coming up. And maybe things could somewhat get set as soon as you realize that things are off. Okay. Like anything in your life, right? Like if you're going on a weight loss situation, or you're just trying to cut out something in your life that's unhealthy, and you might say to yourself, man, I am so far gone. What does it really matter if I start? It's not going to matter, but it is. You start making small steps one day, tiny little steps, start heading in the right direction, stay on that course. Over time, you will see the results. And that's where I'm kind of getting at. Once you realize that this clown is not the guy you want in the future, has no business being around this team and all the youth that might come up eventually. Move on, say sorry. But, Clutch mentioned it in the chats. You highlighted it, that Bob Nightingale, the whisperer, has talked about him probably sticking around. There was a differing report earlier this week from Rosenthal in The Athletic that I'll get to in a little bit about how his days might be numbered. But I'm telling you what, if you weren't going to can him after the historic losing streak, and then now after Sunday, I mean, as they head to Seattle, it just feels like, they don't care. This guy is safe. This was Maldonado's quote after, his amazing game. The only thing you can control is keep working, put in my daily work. I'm doing that. The outcome at the end of the year is going to show up. I couldn't be this bad for the whole season. That's where I got to disagree with you, Maldonado. I think you can be. I absolutely think you can be. Anything is possible when you put on a White Sox uniform.
Wow. I mean, apparently you can be that bad, if not worse. But I want to go back to like the Pedro thing and thinking about the young players that are coming up, because the trade deadline is coming up, right? And there's been a lot of rumors, and I'm sure that's on the docket to talk about maybe at this point or maybe in the future. There's going to be young talent eventually coming into this organization. There's young talent that's already in this organization that's going to be coming up and playing. So do you really want this manager that you have to assess in the off season, as maybe Bob Nightingale said, and like, well, we'll talk about maybe, or we'll think about what Pedro can do with these young guys. You're going to have an influx of young talent coming in and going out to the minor leagues and back and forth, or coming into this organization, that are going to have some type of interaction with Pedro Grifol. And you as an organization have to say, is that the best thing for these players? Because, it's almost like being a parent, right? Or being a coach. Like if you're a coach of youth sports, sometimes you have to go, what is the best thing for these kids? Right. And we have to be damned about what we want as parents or as coaches or anything else. What is the best thing for these kids at this moment in time? Is it this or this or this? It doesn't matter. So is it the best thing for these young players to come through and their first experience, maybe in the major leagues, to have Bozo the Clown as their manager? Maybe it won't be a big deal. Maybe I'm making it more of a big deal than it is. Maybe these guys will go,
I think it's still a deal. I think it's still something.
You think so? I think it's a deal.
Well, think about this.
The organization goes, doesn't matter.
Well, we know the organization says that because, like we've seen that. You and I have been fans long enough. And I know there's people, with us watching, listening, that have been fans for longer than we have been fans. And they've seen the ineptitude and almost the apathetic approach. But think about it with how they handled the Hahn Williams situation. Don't you think Jerry knew these guys are gone in a matter of a couple of weeks? Okay. I'm parting ways. You don't make a split decision on a relationship like that over decades. Okay. Like just one day you wake up and say, yeah, today's the day. He allowed Hahn and Williams to affect the organization by letting them conduct trades.
Yep.
And then after 2 weeks after the trade deadline, whatever it was, let them go. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
That's the same thing we're talking about, is whatever Grifol has his hands in now could affect down the line. Maybe not as much, but in a way that there's a parallel.
Not only that, I don't want to go back in time that much, but not only affect, trades that have happened and affect this ball club, but you think about it, they weren't even on the same page with the Jake Berger trade.
Yeah.
Because they weren't, Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams weren't aligned on that, because that was one team that Kenny Williams was the Marlins and the Yankees. Those are the two teams that Kenny had, like, he could do whatever he wanted with, because for whatever reason, he had the relationships. So he's making trades without Rick Hahn knowing. I mean, that is the most, okay. I get it.
I know
the sell the team bozo signs. I get it. I believe it. I want it to happen, but it's not going to happen because this guy's a moron. and he doesn't care. And that's like case in point where this guy doesn't care. You can talk all you want about, oh, Jerry cares, Jerry cares, Jerry cares. When you allow an organization to function with a baseball of or president of baseball ops that is going to supersede your general manager in trades, and they don't communicate, and they're fighting, and there's infighting possibly with your managers all the time, that to me shows that you don't know what the frick you're doing, and you should sell the team, and you don't care, because you just showed it right there with your with the 40 years of all that you've allowed to happen. So I can't even.
Well, I'll you got me going on the Jerry stuff, which is never it's not out of the question for this program. But Mark Burley, one of our all-time favorites, was in the booth, stopped by since the last time we talked. It was during the Boston series. And how about this quote, which is not surprising. I feel like we all knew it, but just for Burley to talk about it, got my blood boiling. I don't know if you saw this, Pat. So this was Burley. I would have loved to finish my career in Chicago. Whenever I signed with Miami, we went to Jerry and said, this is what they're offering. I don't need that much to stay here. It did suck to not be able to finish my career here. So he went to Jerry and said, this is what Miami's offering. Doesn't have to be at Miami's price. Okay, it doesn't even have to be that much. I'd like to stay here. And Jerry just basically was like, no, thank you for everything. We'll see you later. How about that? For all those Jerry apologists out there. And then Burley went on to, I think he went out to an all-star game. I mean, he kept chugging, man. He did not slow up. And that's King Jerry for you.
That I didn't see that until you just spoke it into my face right now, which is, it's hard to take in, honestly, as a fan. It's really hard to hear that when you get a little insight into the nuts and bolts and how negotiations happen, especially when a player is negotiating without much power, right? Listen, I'd love to stay here. I really would. I want to stay here, which as a fan, you go, this is the team I love. Somebody wants to be with who I love. This, how can you not want that guy here? And he's still effective. It's not like a guy that's on his last leg. It's not he can't do anything anymore and he's not going to perform for you. You can't tell me you can't find a spot on the roster or enough money in the bank account to bring somebody like that back. Yeah, I get it. There's situations that happen all the time where
business.
Players have won championships and they're doing this, and everybody goes, "Oh, bring this guy back," and it's like, well, his skills are eroded and he's not good anymore. And I get that. I understand that.
We all watched The Last Dance. I mean, we know what happened there, and how things kind of fell apart and everything. So it's no surprise. And we kind of all heard it, I think, when it went down. But to get that kind of quote from Burley just a few days ago, that was like just twisting the knife.
And especially with the guy, how durable he was, right? With his career, and you think, listen, there's not a lot of risk here. There's really not. Why wouldn't you want to bring this guy back, a fan favorite, and let him retire or maybe pitch as long as he can in a White Sox uniform? I mean, boy, oh boy, it is what it is. I keep telling people all the time, I'm like, eventually one day this guy will not own this team anymore. One day, I don't know if he'll, it'll be here in Chicago. I don't know. Yeah. Someday it may not be here in Chicago, but for now, this team is here and it's owned by this guy, and it won't be that way. In 10 years when we're doing this show together, Nick, It won't be that guy anymore. I can guarantee you that.
Well, right now he's got some history next to his name. As the White Sox, they lost their 14th in a row this past week. It was game 1 of the Boston series, and that is the all-time record now for the Chicago White Sox franchise. 14 games in a row. It was ugly. And what a way to break the record, too. You had Danny Mendick throwing these ephus pitches, these lollipops at the end of the game. It was really.
Were you able to watch that, or did you have to like go outside and smoke a cigarette during it?
You know what? I haven't smoked a cigarette in probably since we were in college, and I think I was smoking 2 at a time at one point.
Well, you know what? You go hard. That's
when I go.
You really dedicate yourself.
If I was,
smoke a cigarette.
I'll smoke 2 of them right now, right in front of you. Here's to living good all the time. So yeah, that could have got me. I was watching it live. I was like, this is absolutely embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. But Danny got out of the jam. I mean, his ERA, I think, is his number. It's 0.
Yeah.
Just goofy stuff. But the record was had, and the record was the streak was ended, thankfully, the next day with Garrett Crochet, which Stone called it, is he is the kind of the prophet in a way with what he can predict. Crochet went 6 innings, 3 hits, an earned run, 2 walks, 10 Ks. He's got an ERA that Foley would love. Tree. In a year that he, again, is in uncharted territories with his innings, and his name has been all over the trade block with Luis Robert Jr. Recently. We'll get to some of that. We saw Cannon come in this past week, which I liked what I saw with 3 innings of a save. That was nice. And then I was at the Saturday game, the Hawaiian shirt giveaway with my son and my wife. My son is living it up, man. I mean, he's been to so many games as a 2-year-old. I think my first game, I was like 5. It was 85 or 86, something like that. He has been to so many. And he's 2 for 2 this year. And in both games, he's seen a home run, and he's had ice cream, and he got his first grand slam. Gavin Sheets had a grand slam on Saturday. He was there for it. Eating a helmet Sunday while Gavin Sheets hits a grand slam, and his father's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I mean, it was quite the day.
And see, that's where you have to go, and you say, you take that moment. You have to remove yourself from what's happening on the field, or what's, what the record is, and the history of how terrible this team is, and the ownership and all that stuff, right? You have to boom, separate yourself, and you go, I'm here with my son.
Yes, exactly.
I'm stealing as much of this ice cream out of this helmet as I can because he can't defend it. Right? I'm stronger than him. And what are you going to do, Vinny? Because I got you. And you're just having a blast, you and the family, and boom, fireworks are going off, ice cream's being had, and there you go. You just say, listen, this is why you and I will sit in probably January and February and go, how many days till opening day?
Exactly.
For moments like that.
That was the joy moment. We talked about it last episode. Find the joy somehow, some way, if you can, if you still want to find any. And taking my son to games, it's tough for him to really, we'll have it on at home, of course. But when you're there, and, he was, it's unreal. Like when the fireworks and everything, just mesmerized, and just the smile that comes across his face. And he's in a habit of just saying more, anything, anytime, and more. And I'm like, buddy, I wish
that
say
was more runs or
more home runs. I'm like, what you saw right there was very rare, sir.
Yeah.
So just enjoy that.
Here's what I'll say to that. And you just wait. At some point, you're going to have happen what happened to me today. You're sitting next to your son, and you're watching the baseball game, and you're talking about baseball, and you're talking about, okay, listen, I'm talking to my son Gavin, who loves the game, and he's a player, and he's fantastic. And you're sitting there, and you're going, okay, they're going to bring the infield in. Why, Dad? Because of this. And now they're going to move the infield back. And here's, Dad, why did they walk that guy? Well, they intentionally walked him so they can get the
I love all that. I can't wait for that.
When you can get to that point, and you're just again, it's a moment in which you're not at the ballpark, and you're not having the ice cream, the fireworks, and all that stuff. But it's a moment where you can go, I can remove us from the fact that we're the worst team in baseball. And we can just talk about the game together.
Let's talk about the game of
with an
baseball, the X's
8-year-old.
and O's, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a kid that just loves the game.
Yeah.
And those are special moments. So again, the marketing team up there, they know what they're doing. It's better at the ballpark. I get all that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's 100% hits home sometimes when you're in those moments, even when you're not at the ballpark, when you just go, okay, this is why we're here. This is why we're going to pass this love on to the next generation.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for this team and their 17 wins, but because it's baseball and it's our team and it's Southside and all that other crap that goes into it. So I'm glad you had that moment, and I'm glad that other fans out there still find those moments to enjoy with their close ones.
Yeah, you got to find it. It's tough. It's difficult to really manifest that. So Paul DeYoung too, flexing the power. Gosh, he had another one today. I mean, Paul DeYoung at 12 home runs. That's a guy that you're going to be talking about at the trade deadline. He keeps it up. Teams are going to want that, need that. There's obviously, like we had mentioned, Luis Robert Jr. and Crochet, and sure, there could be value for Kopech. I don't get it. I guess for his lively arm, people are going to try to get that. I don't know what we're going to reap from it. Like what are you giving up for just kind of a flyer on a guy that can throw triple digits? Because I don't have any confidence with him, as we saw it in the Cubs series when he gave up that walk-off in game 2 for the quick sweep. But so Nightingale thinks Pedro is going to be around for the rest of the season. Rosenthal had something earlier this week, I believe, early this week in The Athletic, basically talking about final days for Pedro. And then it's almost like a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of time when it actually happens. And Griffol's quote was, "I'm a White Sox until I'm not a White Sox. Believe me when I tell you, I don't get too far ahead. I don't make those decisions. If the decision is made, it's made. I'll deal with it when it happens, if it happens. And if it does, everything will be all right," he said. So he has got that positive exterior, I guess. I know he's a man of faith, and you got to hold on to something, I guess, right now, whatever that is, whatever you have in your life that you go to maybe when you're just in a really bad spot. You have to kind of lean on that. So he's got that, and I think he's leaning on it. But it was tough this past week. I watched those Cubs games, and when they were up 5-0 in both of those games, Pat, especially game 1, I was grinning ear to ear. I wanted it so bad. It means really nothing. But just in this season, just beat the Cubs. And the way it was going, I was like, this is fun. Mm-hmm. I loved it. And classic, our bullpen is garbage. And it showed itself in both of those games. So I was pretty dejected. Did it affect you like it affected me?
Well, it does, but I was able to move past it a lot quicker than I think in normal years, if that makes sense. Like, sure. I get it. It would have been great. It would have been great to beat the Cubs in Wrigley Field, both of those games when you have a lead of that size and be able to hold on to it, even to split, really, and to go, like, not to rub it in people's faces, because what are you really rubbing in anybody's faces at that point? But listen, to just walk around a little bit taller, with the chest poked out a little bit more, and enjoy it for a couple of days, that would have been nice. It really would have been nice, but it wasn't to be. And I don't know. Listen, I'm not going to get down on it more than the rest of the year, because it is what it is with this team. It's like, and if you're a Cubs fan, are you really going to walk around enjoying it that much when you beat the worst team in maybe history 2 games, and you had to fight back and claw to do so, and then you turn around and lose series after series? I don't know. I wouldn't be feeling great if I was a Cubs fan. Would you?
No, not at all. I mean, you're not where you want to be. That's their problem. We got our own problems clearly, but I just wanted to take care of business there, embarrass them a little bit, get a couple wins against the Cubs, and and have that, especially when you had 5-0 leads in both of those. I'll tell you who would have been just as pissed off as Hawk Harrelson. He would have not been happy, about that. And speaking of Hawk, our man John Schriffen was channeling Hawk this past weekend on Saturday with a Paul DeYoung home run that put the Sox up fairly big late in the game. And Schriffen's call on the home run was, "You can put it on the board." Yes. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, that he used Hawk's legendary catchphrase to call a home run in a fairly meaningless game. And I didn't get all the context at first. I mean, I had to feel, though, like he got some sort of permission maybe from Hawk to use it, or it turned out Schriffen said that it was in honor of Hawk on like the anniversary of Hawk Harrelson Day or something.
Which is weird.
I don't
weird. I was at Hawk Harrelson Day. Were you at Hawk Harrelson Day?
I don't think I was.
Okay. I was there. I didn't know that there was an anniversary of Hawk Harrelson.
I know they had a day. They had Hawk Harrelson Day.
Day.
So Schriffen must have, I don't know if a producer or somebody said to him like, "Hey, it's Hawk Harrelson Day." Nowhere did I see it mentioned up until when he kind of justified using that home run call. That was the only time I heard of it. So whatever. I mean, Schriffen just can't get.
Okay. Here's when you do that. Here's when you do, and I don't want to be like morbid or like bad news Patty boy over here, but
sure,
when Hawk eventually passes, the next game, that's when you do it.
Yeah,
sure. That's when you do it. Not like an anniversary of a day that they honored Hawk when he was still around. I just feel like, and I feel like that was a moment for Benetti. That's a moment for Jason Benetti as the guy that replaced Hawk, that grew up watching Hawk and listening to Hawk. Like that was the moment. Like, okay, Hawk passes away. The next time that somebody hits a home run, this is what I'm doing. That ball hit deep. You can put it on the board. Yes. And that's it. And that's all you have to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought there had to been some sort of conversation. There's no way you go out and you do that, a legendary call by a legendary broadcaster, without getting some sort of permission. But I mean, anything Schriffen says and does right now is, boy, it is absolutely shredded.
Microscope.
I mean, everything is shredded. But I believe, I could be wrong, when Ed Farmer passed away, God rest his soul. What a man! Ed Farmer was legendary. Mm-hmm. His classic line, what was it? Hang a star on that one.
Well, that was defensive play. Hang a star on that one.
And I believe, I don't know if it was Andy Mazer that was filling in for him with DJ, and it was like one of the first games after he might have said that in honor of Ed Farmer with like the first big defensive play. I could be wrong. I could be imagining that, but I think I'm accurate on that.
I don't remember. So I don't know, but Farmio, that was it. That was hang a star on that. And then Light It Up was the home run.
Light It Up. Right? Oh, Light It Up. Maybe it was Light It Up after a home run or whatever. It was one of Farmer's lines that was used in honor because of his passing. There's a tribute.
And you know what? Someday, Nick, in your untimely passing, I'll say, your favorite line, which is, what is it? Guatemala? We need another baseball?
Costa Rica.
Can you do your home run call for us right now? Right here, right now. Can you do it?
So 20 years ago, believe it or not, Pat, 20 years ago this summer is when Fox Sports Net held that cattle call, that, open audition to have this like alternate broadcast in the booth. This is kind of what Comcast is doing right now. NBC Sports Chicago, like, they're a lame duck. This is it for them. This is their last season. And then this other station or whatever is going to take over. So if Comcast Sportsnet wants to do anything or NBC Sports Chicago, I should say, do anything fun, inventive, like in your last hurrah, experimental, like you should be doing it right now, because who knows what's going to happen with this new provider. But Fox Sportsnet was on their way out, and Comcast Sportsnet was going to take over. So the producer at Fox Sportsnet was like, hey, let's do kind of like an alternate broadcast. If you don't want to listen to Hawk and DJ, you can hit the SAP button, and it would be Eric Collins, the great Pat Reedy, who was working at Fox Sportsnet at the time, and we'll have a fan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a tryout. And hundreds of people went out, and
I was one of them.
You were there, and
I was there.
I ended up making the cut after cut, and it came down to like your final interview was you had to bring in your own home run call. What's your own home run call going to be? Well, I researched where baseballs were being manufactured and made at the time, and that was 2004. And my home run call was, Costa Rica, get back to work. We need another baseball. And
all those people in Costa Rica just having a cigarette break, and they're all, well, Nick, we got to get back to work. They're just so in the baseball.
It didn't catch on. Let's just say it didn't catch on. But I got the gig, and I did like 10 games, and it was a blast. And I got to meet and really hang out with Bill Melton, especially during rain delays. I heard so many great stories from Bill Melton. That was a cool experience. That was 20 years ago this summer.
Wow, that's 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago. So anyway, so you got week ahead, you got Seattle on the road, Arizona. Seattle's a wonderful place to go see a ball game, by the way. I had a blast in Seattle many years ago. Fun town. Seattle fans were great. We were non-threatening. We were sitting out in the outfield with them. They took us around to all these different bars and after hours places. We found out where the Players Hotel was, saw Adam Dunn and Ventura. And, we had a blast in Seattle. So they're going to be in Seattle. But, the big thing that, continues to pop up is the trading stuff. And there was articles this past week, Pat, about like everybody's on the line. Anything can happen. Anybody can go. Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. are obviously the big ticket items, the big assets. On 670, the score, I think it was Parkins who made a comment that if Luis Robert Jr. gets traded, it would probably, break him if he was a Sox fan. And it felt like a very 12-year-old comment. Like, I get it. Like, kids will probably be affected when a superstar is traded. I completely understand that. You and I, when we were kids, when Harold Baines was dealt, when I was a kid, it was horrible. It was a horrible day, and you're a kid, you're like collecting the baseball cards and these superstars, but as an adult, you're just so grizzled and like, this is how the Sox do it, man. This is what they do. They trade away their assets, especially right now. It's not going to break me. It's absolutely not going to break me. I'm pretty damn calloused as a White Sox fan, as I think most people are. But in your thoughts, I mean, would a Luis Robert Jr. trade break you, or Garrett Crochet right now?
If a trade of anybody on this ball club is going to break you, you're not a real fan. You're just not. I'm sorry. I mean, that is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That someone would go on a broadcast in Chicago on a major network and a major station and say, this will break me. I mean, that is stupid. Are you kidding me? My son, again, I mentioned him. He's 8 years old. He wears 88 for Lou Bob. He's got a gold chain that he got for his birthday, 88. He's 88. That's it. It's his favorite player. And I can guarantee you, if I walked up to him tomorrow and said, hey, Luis Robert got traded, he'll move on. He'll be okay. Yeah. And you're telling me as a grown ass man on a team that is going nowhere, that you can't see the benefit of him moving on? Because I talked about it a lot. You and I have talked about it on this show. Like, what are the timelines? What do the timelines look like? Okay. And I'm not talking Marvel Cinematic Universe here. I'm talking about real timelines of baseball players. When are we going to be good? And when are you going to be in the peak of your, your baseball career? You're looking at a guy that has had multiple injuries that have put him on the stint for a long time. And we have not been able to realize his full potential. So if you can tell me that we can trade this guy that he's got a lot of talent, no doubt about it. No doubt about his talent. And you can get something back. Now, I'd be 100% in for that because there's no telling when this team is going to be in win mode, when he's going to be at his peak. He's might be at his peak right now, and this team is not going to be perform for the next several years. So if you can get a great package together for Luis Robert Jr. that is going to make this team better faster, I'm in for it.
Yeah, I just don't know who's going to give that. Teams tossed around Seattle, San Diego. Who's got that package? I don't know. And I don't want like 8-player deal and like 3 of the 4 of the players, maybe 5 of them are like 16-year-olds that have like high ceilings, low floors. Like they've got crazy bat to ball skills that they could see, being the next whatever. No. I need like superstars. I need some superstars in there. I don't need a bunch of question marks. I don't know who's going to be able to do that with all that, controlled years and everything. It would never break me. I mean, it's just like, okay, that's what they do. Unfortunate. It's sad. It's really sad that that's how it's got to be. But, we'll move on. The Crochet thing, again, that's the tricky one because I don't know what a team would do with him this year. I guess move him to the bullpen. How careful would they be on the innings limit and everything? It's probably more for a future situation with a team that is looking at their 2025 and beyond and saying like, wow, if we got this guy in our rotation, kind of groomed him, prepared him, but like, it's not really right now, but it's for next season.
Well, or you could look at it as like, we're going to be a playoff team and I can use him as an opener.
Sure. Okay.
In a series, or I can use him out of the bullpen. I can use him in different spots.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and absolutely.
This is a weapon I have where, maybe there's guys that are in my bullpen that wouldn't be, comfortable in that situation, but I can bring this guy in and I can win in the short term with him in this situation. And I can, bring him in for next year and have him go longer as a starter. So that's where, if I'm in charge of an organization, I go, there's where the benefit. I don't really need him to win this division. I need him to pitch in an opener in a series, just in the first round or something like that, and maybe an inning in the second round or whatever it might be. But that's where I'm looking at his benefit right now, and then going, next year I can get him to go from whatever the innings he's going to get this year to 160 innings. That's the goal for next year. I don't know.
Yeah. Obviously they're fielding questions. They're absolutely fielding questions because of where the Sox are and what teams are teams that are like looking around and saying, wow, I can't believe where we're at right now. And there's going to be probably even more teams in that mix come late July. That one would bother me more than Robert, honestly, because I'm such a pitching guy and I want to see the Sox be purposeful with their direction around pitching moving forward, like really be purposeful, like zero in on guys, build around guys. You're going to have to spend money. You have to spend money, which I don't know if it's going to happen, but you have to spend money on some anchor arms, if you're going to really do this the right way. I like the youth. There's guys that have been mentioned in the chat here. Thorpe is one of them, and Schultz years down the line. And there's a lot of exciting names one day. Garrett's right here, right now. And we've got him for a little bit longer. But, that's happened before with this organization. That one would hurt me, but I get it. You have few assets right now. You really do that are going to haul, the prospects, whatever you're going to try to do, similar to last time. So we'll see, it's going to continue to be talked about, boy. And there's other guys, that are going to be off this team eventually, but those are the big two ticket items.
So you think about that, Nick, it's like all these guys are going to be off this team, and the DeYoungs and the Crochets and possibly the Kopechs and maybe even the Luis Robert Juniors of the world. I mean, this is where we're at right now with 17 wins. It's going to get worse. right? Obviously,
It's going to absolutely get worse. I mean, we talked at the beginning of the season how this was like a 4-month season, maybe 3.5, because after the trade deadline is when things were really going to, you're just seeing guys that they're trying people out. It's definitely all about the future. It's going to look so much different. So you've got this 2.5, 3-month window of like, well, what kind of team are we? And we realized pretty quickly here, which is, I guess, a good problem for the Sox, is they knew right away we are absolute sellers. And now we just are praying that probably the assets, hopefully Robert can stay healthy. Again, if they're going to seriously be able to entertain and get the farm and then some. But he's got a history, man. Teams aren't dumb. At least, other teams aren't dumb, and organizations. They know what's been going on with Robert, and they know Crochet's history too.
Yeah.
Time will obviously tell on those two guys, but it's not going to break me. It's just the way that the Sox do business. That's all that is.
You and I are like a couple Russian boxers. Nothing will break us.
Most Sox fans are, though. Everybody that's good enough to join us and listen and been with us for so long. We're in our 6th season here of doing Good Guys Talk Back and talking Sox and it's like you just kind of weathered so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad to say you've been through so much. You've seen so much. It's like you kind of get numb to it. You don't feel any pain, which is probably a really bad thing, but that's what has happened. So that's why we gather here on Sunday nights for some therapy.
Our eyes are swollen shut.
Yeah.
We're waiting for somebody to cut us. And it's just, that's where we're at. We're punch drunk. We're in the corner, just being sprayed down, water being sprayed into our mouths. We're just kind of delirious.
Yeah.
A lot, but that's who we are as a fan base.
Yeah, well, we could take a punch. We absolutely can take a punch.
Like if you're out and you had marked off like all the places that you still need to go to in terms of road trips.
Yeah.
So the next time you go out to wherever you're at and you take a road trip and you're going to see the Sox play somewhere, and the opposing team fan comes up to you and goes, "What is it like to be a White Sox fan?" You go, "We're pretty much a Russian boxer." Mm-hmm. That's what we would say.
I always just say, you can't hurt me. There's nothing you can say that can hurt me. I've got so much scar tissue, and I'm so I'm so absolutely numb to the pain. Like your team, whatever you're going to do, I've been hurt by the people that I love. And that's the worst hurt. And that scars you the deepest. And so that's why I think these little like rumors and so it's bad, but man, come on, this is how it is. We've seen it before.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. So do you have, by the way, did you have another Pedro Grifol quote of the week?
Absolutely. I've got one
our show with, because there was a lot of great stuff in the middle, and you like to do that. You like to pepper some really juicy tidbits in, but you save the best last, and I love it.
It's a nice concise one here that kind of wraps everything up about how Pedro feels about everything. But I just want to thank everybody once again spending your Sunday evening with us. A beautiful Sunday in the Chicagoland area, wrapping things up as we talk Boston series, Maldonado, Schriffen, trade deadline, all the good stuff from this past week. Really, really appreciate, subscribing to the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. It really means a bunch. We're trying to get to 500. We're closing in. We got some work to do to get to 300, but I think we could make it. If we, by the end of the season, we could do this, maybe sooner. It doesn't cost you a thing. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel, pass it along to other Sox fans. It goes a long, long way in helping us out. And find the audio absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. But, this is fueled by fans, man. This is fueled by all the folks that we like rubbing shoulders with, all the diehards out there, all the folks that, are in it with us. It means a ton. So here is your Pedro Grifol quote of the week, Pat. I'm comfortable with who I am as a baseball man and what I bring to the table. And these coaches are really good coaches that really care.
Yes,
We
of course.
bleed this. This is what we do for a living. End quote.
In case you were confused
Yeah.
about what we did for a living, Pedro just told you this is what we do for a living. Thank you,
They
Pedro.
bleed it, man.
I was confused. I thought maybe you pump gas, even though there's nobody in the world that there's a profession of pumping.
Don't try
gas
to pump
anymore.
gas out Pacific Northwest. That's illegal, by the way. On the
Wait,
road
say
trip.
that way. Why? Why
You
is that?
can't
illegal?
pump your own gas out there. I know in Oregon, I don't know if it's also Washington State, which they're headed to Seattle. You can't pump your own gas.
Get out of town.
I'm telling you.
There's people
the
that have
truth.
to come out and pump your gas for you.
I was in Portland years ago
Uh-huh.
with my wife who was doing a business trip. I tagged along. Beautiful Portland.
Yeah.
Went to fill up the rental car, and someone just like came out like Steve Martin from The Jerk, just you don't stop. It's illegal. Do not grab the hand. You can't pump your own gas.
Okay, I'll have to confirm that with my cousin Ariane,
Well,
who lives in Portland, to see if
Yeah.
that's true or not. Not that I don't believe you, because
Look,
a lot of
why
what
would
you
I
say
make
is
something
true.
that they've got some people together and they changed the law, but that was
After
how
you
it
left,
was.
they're like, listen, this
We're
guy
confusing
from
too many
Chicago, he just was
Yeah.
adamant about pumping his own gas. I had
Yeah.
no idea. Thank
Yeah.
you for that
Yeah, you
public
got it.
service announcement,
Yeah.
Nick, that you can't pump your
Yeah.
gas in the great Pacific Northwest.
Pat, it's always a pleasure, buddy. I feel better.
Nikolai Habibulin, it's always good to see you in a Hawaiian shirt, and it's good to talk White Sox baseball, and I can't wait to do it again next week.
Yeah, next week is next week Father's Day.
Oh yes, we'll be celebrating Father's Day together.
Wonderful. We'll do that next Sunday night. Talk about the week that was. He is Pat Hester at Pat Hester 21 on Twitter X. I am at Nick_GGTB. Again, find the podcast absolutely everywhere and subscribe to the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Hey, for Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.